The payroll cycle. Guys, initially I'm going to do how we go about employing someone, whether it's salary or wage, and it's the same. But then I'm going to focus on the wage cycle and just explain where the salary cycle is applicable, because the wages take place more regularly, so there are more controls required. So in order to employ someone, there is an employee contract. And then the next document is if there are going to be any changes to that contract, there's an employee amendment form. And that will change if there's a rate or a salary or hour changes. All of those will be captured in that employment amendment form. Okay, now I'm going to go into the wages specific cycle. First document in that cycle is the clock card. That's very old school. The new ways, there's biometric systems like fingerprints or scanning of your eyes, but we're going to work with a manual clock card for now and update it with the computer controls if they choose to have a newer age system. From that, there will be a batch control sheet and a batch register, and that's because there are lots of wage clock cards, and so we batch them in order to keep control over them. Then there is going to be the payroll, and this is now applicable to salaries as well. So from in contract to the payroll, plus any deductions that they have based on their contract. Then there's going to be a pay slip, followed by a pay packet. Pay packet is only applicable to wages. Pay slip, that's where it ends with your salaries. Then, if they don't collect their pay packets, there's an unclaimed wage register. Again, only applicable to your wages. Weekly, there needs to then be a reconciliation. And finally, your PAYE return. Submitting PAYE for each of the employees. So no consistency in my payroll cycle. Some documents are completely written out, some are abbreviated. That's just how it goes. Alright, so looking at the documents now, which needs to be pre-numbered. The employment contract must be pre-numbered, as well as an employee number given to each employee. Guys, also in your sales and your purchases, your customers will have a number and your suppliers will have a number, so you can add that. Then, the employee amendment form, which is a master file amendment form, must be pre-numbered. It must be able to track all amendments made. Clock cards, if they're manual, will be pre-numbered. Batch control sheet will be pre-numbered. The batch register just accompanies the batch control sheet, so it's not pre-numbered. The payroll is your payroll journal, so that's not pre-numbered, it's not a document. Your pay slip is a document, it's pre-numbered. The pay packet is the actual cash that's getting handed to you, it's not pre-numbered. Your unclaimed wage register is a register, it's not pre-numbered. Recon is pre-numbered, and your PAYE return is your return handed back. So what's included in every stage of the cycle? Employment contract for salaries will have their salary. Employment contract for wages will have their rate for overtime and normal hours, and then the hours that they are set to be working. Your employment amendment form will have any changes that are made, so to the salary or to wages, rates and hours. Your clock card will have the hours that were worked by the wage employee, normal and overtime, in that week that they've been working. Your batch control sheet will have your control totals. So the control totals we're looking at are financial total, hash totals, record counts. Okay, we'll look at those when we actually do computers next test. Your batch register has got all your batch control sheet numbers. Okay, so it's a summary of all of them. Your payroll journal includes the gross salary and then obviously the deductions, so that we get the net amount that's going to be paid to the employee. The pay slip will have for your wages the hours worked, the rate, and then the deductions to get the total net pay For your salaries, it will just be your salary less your deductions. Your pay packet will have the cash, the rand amount going to be paid to your wage employee. Unclaimed wage register will include any unclaimed wages, so it'll have the rand amount for what was unclaimed. Your recon for wages needs to be week on week. What is the wage week on week, so that there's a nice comparison for salaries month on month. And your PAYE return will have the PAYE that needs to be submitted for the month's PAYE. So where do we have to have additional controls? For authorization, the employee contract must be authorized by an HR manager and then by the employee himself. Amendment form must be authorized for any amendments made. For the clock cards, the overtime must be authorized. The batch control sheets must be authorized because they contain all of the clock card details. The payroll journal must be authorized. The pay slips must be authorized by the employee when he collects his cash, if he is a wage employee. The unclaimed wage register must be authorized because this is going to say who didn't collect their money. The recon must be authorized and the PAYE return authorized. Segregation of duties, everywhere where we've got a black arrow. But now I want additional segregation of duties when they are putting the money into a pay packet. 2 people must do that so that there's watching of each other so cash isn't stolen. And then at the payout, 2 people should be involved in paying to the employee so that somebody doesn't steal. And 2 people need to be in charge of the money that doesn't get paid out, so going into the unclaimed wage register. And in line with that, we need access controls over the pay packets and that unclaimed wage register because there is cash at hand. Alright, so I just want to quickly walk you through the whole cycle now that we've added some controls. So ultimately, an employee will sign up with this company through an employment contract which will have all the details of the employment. Any changes will be recorded on those employment amendment files. Then, if you are a wage employee, you will come to work, you will clock in the hours that you are working, and that will be recorded on that clock card. At the end of every week, all the clock cards in all of the different departments within the factory will be put in their department's batch control sheets. So they'll take one piece of paper that's going to summarize all the details from that department's clock cards. It's going to add up the rand amount, so it'll have a financial total for all of those clock cards. It'll have hash totals, it'll add up any numerical field on those clock cards, and it'll say, in my department, there are 50 clock cards. So it's going to have the totals for each department's clock cards. And then there will be one batch register which will then have all the details of the batch control sheets. So we had 10 departments that had their own batch control sheets with all the clock cards under there. The batch register will then show that there are 10 batch control sheets, and that's going to be used to accompany all the batch control sheets and the clock cards to the payroll. The information is then input in at the payroll, and the payroll journal is created. Guys, more controls with regards to how this batch control sheet works, I'm going to discuss when we do application controls in test 2. Okay, the payroll will then be calculated. Any deductions that are from the employment contract will be added in to get to the net total to be paid to each of your salary and wage employees. For your wage employees, now is where they need to go and get the cash to be included in the pay packet for them. Okay, so 2 people will have to be handling that cash, putting in the money into the pay packet to prevent theft of that money from happening. And then 2 people will do the payout. So let's add here payout, so that we're showing it's not just 2 people who put the packets together, 2 people also need to perform that payout, handing out the cash to the employee. And one of those two people should be the manager. So if it's factory staff, it's factory manager. If it's warehouse staff, it's the warehouse manager. Then the employee has got responsibilities here. The employee needs to present their ID to prove that they are that employee that the cash belongs to. They have to count the cash to make sure it's the correct amount, and they have to sign the payroll to acknowledge that they accepted that cash. So isolation of responsibility belongs to them. That cash was given. If they do not attend the payout, so the money is not taken by them, that needs to be included in the unclaimed wage register and then put in a safe. And both the people who perform the payout need to sign that unclaimed wage register, acknowledging that they have put that money in the safe and haven't taken it. Then a recon is performed and the PAYE return submitted to SARS. Okay, and our last control, reconciliation. Employment contracts and amendment forms are going to be based on what they agreed in terms of employment. So for your wages, on a weekly basis, they're going to work the hours and record it on a clock card. Then the batch control sheet is developed and they're going to take the rates from the employment contract and then the hours from the clock card, overtime and normal hours. And both of those are going to have to be reconciled to the clock cards. Then your payroll journal is going to be reconciled in terms of hours to the clock cards and rates to the employment contracts. So just remember, guys, journal is going to be based on the individual clock cards and the employment contracts, even though the batch control sheet has been developed with control totals previously. Payslip is then going to be based on the payroll, so it's reconciled to the payroll, pay packets to the payslip. Unclaimed wage register is reconciled to any unclaimed at the payout. Your recon is weekly wages to wages, so that's reconciled based on the totals, and your PAYE return is reconciled to the payroll.